Hello everyone, Chief Canuck here with a recap of the latest Hunt the Truth podcast episode 8, Drip, Drip, Drip. The episode begins with an irate Petra calling Ben. This was the first he had heard from her in a while. A major leak had happened overnight and she was accusing Ben, but he had no clue what was going on. She hangs up and Ben checks his public feed. Everyone was buzzing about the leak. A leak all about the Master Chief. John 117 was plastered on front pages with the headlines, "Collusion with the enemy, civilian casualties, abducting a hero, and assassinating an icon." Ben wanted to find the source of the leak and it didn't take him long to find it. Turns out everyone had the same source file. It was a suppressed incident report from an embassy in the outskirts that had now been viewed over 500 million times. The report stated that 10 days ago in the outer colonies, the chief had suddenly appeared at an embassy where human and alien peace talks were taking place.
The chief stormed in and instantly killed the bodyguard of Outer Colonies Ambassador Richard Sakibo, starting a firefight that would claim 19 human lives. He abducted the ambassador and blasted an escape path through security personnel, mowing them down with extreme prejudice as he escorted the alien delegation to safety. Once aboard his waiting evac ship, they fled the planet, leaving years of diplomatic work in ruins. The next day, local officials picked up a signal beacon that led them to a nearby field. There, they found the architect of the talks, revered peace activist Richard Sakibo, last seen in the chief's custody, lying dead in the grass.
Ben called Petra back and she had stated she'd been fact-checking for hours and it doesn't look good. The Master Chief now has the nickname, the Fallen Spartan. She asked if this was FERO and Ben's doing. Still, Ben had no idea, but he knew FERO was obviously behind all of this. As Petra relayed more information, the call cut out. Waypoint, compad, everything was out. It turns out network customer service and support hasn't changed much in 500 plus years. Ben's communications and his quadrant would be out for 12 days. Obviously this wasn't gonna fly, it was no quadrant failure, it was obvious that Oni was shutting Ben down. So Ben set out to find Mashak. He packed up and left to an undisclosed location to continue working. Once he was set back up, Mashak had left a message for him. Turns out he was calling just to say hi. Ben called him and finally got through. Mashak apologized that he had to go dark. It wasn't because of the disturbances he was tracking, it was because of something else he was checking out, but he doesn't tell us what. Now, Ben's last episode left listeners pissed about the kidnappings and augmentations. They didn't like that Oni had no regard for the outer colonies, which is an old wound for those people. In the past, Oni had pulled out all the stops to crush the rebels, but when the Covenant showed up and started glassing planets, Oni left the outer colonists to fend for themselves. Combined with the leak about the Master Chief, the outer colonists' blood was beginning to boil. Mashak stated that these headlines appear to have different effects depending on where people live. The word rogue has created panic amongst those on Earth, but the same can't be said for those in the outer colonies. Whether the embassy's story was true or not, they didn't see Chief as the problem. They saw it as Oni using the Chief, the same as the UEG had used them. For utility when useful, but always disposable. In the outer colonies, Oni is still the real monster. Now that chaos has been set in motion, Ben needed ammo for the Senator so he could confront Oni. Mashak had searched through the slew of data and compiled a graph detailing every case of exotic pediatric autoimmune disorder in the first few decades of the century, then narrowing it down to every kid that had the same disease John's clone had. In the end, Mashak produced a galactic map of where every single Flash clone had died. The distribution wasn't random, it was the opposite of random. It was clear that Oni heavily favored outer colonist children for Spartan program abductions, because it was easy to cover their tracks and their lives were assigned a lower value than those in the inner colonies. The original mandate of the Spartan program was to crush rebel insurrectionists. Years later, the Spartans landed in the outer colonies to crush the rebels. It was like the kidnapped children were returning home. However, instead of fighting on behalf of their homes and families, they were carrying out Oni's political agenda, helping the very organization that kidnapped them. Mashak then proposed the question, what if a doomed to die Flash clone didn't die? Apparently 2 soldiers had run into perfect copies of themselves years later. Imagine finding someone living the life you were supposed to live. In the end, both soldiers committed suicide. After talking with Mashak, FERO called Ben later that night and she sounded more human this time.
Are you enjoying the show?
No, actually I'm not. After everything ONI's done, people are calling for the chief's
The
head.
infection goes to the core, Ben. When you cut all the way in to extract it, you can't always control what sprays
But
out.
you're the one spraying it. You chose to smear the chief.
I'm not smearing anyone. Everything I leaked was real and
But we don't know the whole story, and the implications of this story
The
are the...
only implication is that an aging Spartan may be going off the rails. And sadly, it may be true. Your story set the table for that. When you break children to make warriors, you take a risk of burying psychological damage deep in your soldiers. And for critical decision makers, that's a liability. I don't know what motivated the chief to shoot up that embassy, and I don't know what he's doing now. But he is off leash. He is proving the liability. All I did was expose it by peeling back the very layers of Oni secrecy under which that liability was born and allowed to fester.
FERO knows that the chief is the savior of humanity, and states that right now this is the painful part, as the chief is temporarily being sacrificed in the short term in order to reach their long-term goal. This leak has generated the chaos they needed, and their opportunity has arrived. A meeting had been scheduled on Earth as of that morning. Oni would be testifying in front of high-ranking senators. FERO is going to hack in and get Ben a direct, unbroken feed to lay out Oni's ugly secrets for the senators. Ben had to prepare fast, however FERO gave Ben an idea to amp up the persuasion. With FERO listening, Ben called Anthony Petrosky, the retired ODST, and straight up asked him if he wanted to help bring down Oni. Petrosky was in. FERO chimed in after the call and revealed her real voice. Well, sort of.
I'm so happy to hear
Pharaoh
that.
seemed pleased. Things seemed to be falling into place. So that's your real voice?
For the most part. Just off enough to be untraceable.
She was happy and gave Ben a heads up. One more leak was coming, just to keep the fire going. Ben asked when it would release, and she replied, "It just did," and left the call. Ben pulled up his public feed, and there the leak was. A security video showing the Master Chief waging a brutal assault during the peace talks in the embassy on the planet Biko. With that, the episode ends. A still photo of the security footage was posted, showing the Master Chief during the assault at the embassy. This leaves us with the question: what was the reason John interrupted those long-awaited peace talks? Hopefully it will all be revealed in due time. But please share your theories as to why you think so in the comments down below. Outside of the episode, we have some news about Hunt the Truth and this ad campaign for Halo 5 Guardians. Hunt the Truth has become the second most talked about ad campaign online and the #1 gaming podcast on iTunes. The 3 trailers have over 270 million views, more than 250,000 people have visited the Hunt the Signal ARG, and the phrase Halo 5 Guardians has been referenced almost 1 million times on social media since the start of the campaign just over a month ago. Now, I may or may not account for a large portion of that. A lot of you have been asking how many more episodes of Hunt the Truth will there be, and now we have our answer. There are 5 episodes remaining. New episodes will continue to air every Sunday until the 2-part season finale on June 14th, which is conveniently one day before Xbox's E3 press conference, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time on June 15th. Also revealed on Xbox Wire, we have the list of the star-studded Hunt the Truth cast. In the list, FERO is labeled as a rebel leader and is voiced by Janina Gavankar. So we now know that FERO is neither Dr. Halsey, who is voiced by Jen Taylor, nor is she Petra Janecek, who is voiced by Robin Sparkles, Colby Smulders. So FERO is indeed a brand new character, which was made more obvious once they turned down her distortion on her voice. And with that, that's my recap of Hunt the Truth Episode 8. Be sure to share your thoughts and theories in the comments down below. Also smack that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe for more awesome Halo news and content. My name's Chief Canuck, and I'm signing out.